Hey everyone, Carrie here. I'm coming at you today for another recommendation video. This one is going to be Alphaholes. You know exactly who I'm talking about, those asshole alpha heroes that we love to hate. I am super excited for this video. I've got 10 amazing books to talk to you about, so let's just go ahead and get started. So with all of these recommendation videos that I'm going to be talking about, of course there are going to be some books that are going to be talked about more than once. I read a lot of books in a year, but some of my favorites are the books that I want to recommend to you. So I'm going to try not to overdo so many books over and over and again, but there's going to be series that I just adore and they're my very favorite that are probably going to be coming in a lot because they are well versed. They have a lot of different tropes in them. So speaking of that, the number one book that right now I am obsessed with and I am recommending, and it is just happens to be this trope as well, is the Devil's Playground series. This is the ultimate alpha-hole. Damien is just swoon-worthy and hot and alpha and tough, and Kane, who is also in this series, he is definitely an alpha-hole, but he's no hero. He is just plain bad. And this series is just, it's so good. It's just so good. I'm sorry, I know that I've recommended it in like the last 3 videos, but I just can't recommend it enough. It is not anywhere on BookTube. I'm not seeing anybody else talking about it, so I have to because it is just that fucking good. I love the series so much. Coming in next is one of everybody's favorite alpha holes. He is very popular and is everywhere on BookTube, so I'm pretty sure you will have already heard of this one. But of course, that is Bully by Penelope Douglas. Jared is definitely an alpha hole. He is all male, he is a bully, he is rough and tough, and he is an asshole. Like, just straight up asshole, but we love to hate Jared. He is just so gorgeous and hot and flirty and just mean and yet makes you like swoon for him and root for him, and it's super weird because you want them to be together but you hate how he's treating her. It's the perfect alpha hole. The next book that I'm going to talk about is a sports romance, and of course that is going to be The Wall of Winnipeg and Me. So Vanessa is the assistant to a soccer player and or football player if you want to get fancy about it. Aiden is very broody and self-centered, and he's a first-class athlete, and he focuses on his sport and his life, and that comes first in his life. Nothing else does. He doesn't really date. He doesn't have much of a social life. His whole focus is on himself, his well-being, his fitness, and his career. And he is kind of a jerk to his assistant who has done everything. She does literally everything for him. She cooks, she cleans, she does all of his assistant work on top of it, and he really doesn't ever thank her or give her any kudos or treat her with respect, really. And so she quits, and he has to go in and talk to her, and he actually asks her to marry him, but it's because he's going to lose his green card status. So they do have a marriage of convenience, and it is very good. It is very, very slow burn, and I highly recommend this book. The next book on my list is something that I've recently read and have talked about and gushed about and I've loved, and that of course is Obsidian. I cannot believe how much I laughed during this book, but also how much of an asshole hero this young adult book ended up being. Like, Damon is just so swoon-worthy. You totally root for him, but you know that he's being like a complete asshole to Katie in this book. So Katie's the new girl, Damon is the boy next door. She ends up becoming friends with his twin sister, and he is kind of an asshole to her from the very first day. And it goes over months and months that he treats her like crap. He treats her like crap in front of the entire school, and he kind of pokes on her, prods on her. She ends up dumping like spaghetti on him one time, which was the funniest scene, and I totally was like rooting for Katie to do that. But I love Damon. I love the way he treated her in the end and the way that he actually felt about her. And it was pretty obvious that he had feelings for her, but he was trying to keep her away for her own good. So I really enjoyed that, but he is definitely the definition of an asshole hero. The next book on my list is actually a rom-com. That is going to be That Guy by Kim Jones. This is about Penelope and Jake. Penelope is secondhand embarrassment. Her entire life is secondhand embarrassment. She does some of the most cringeworthy, crazy things that you could ever possibly imagine. She's always been known as the girl who's kind of quirky and awkward, but this is like taking quirky and awkward to another level. She does things that is just outright, like just insane. She ends up meeting the hero for the first time when she happens to be in his house without permission, eating pizza in one of his shirts that she has stained, and that is their first interaction. And he is an asshole to her, rightfully so, but it is their love story, and he ends up being that guy. The guy who is swoony and rich and hot and gorgeous and is just everything that a romance book should be about. He ends up being, but it doesn't necessarily start out that way, and it is just so funny. It is a fun ride. I highly recommend it on audiobook. An Alphahole recommendation list would not be complete without Vicious by L.J. Shin. This is about Vicious and Amelia, and Amelia is kind of the sweet girl next door. Her parents are actually servants for Vicious's family, so they live in the same house, or a part of the same house, the same state anyway, and Vicious is the ultimate asshole hero. Like, he is just downright mean and nasty and, let's just be honest, swoon-worthy and gorgeous. The next book on my list is Savior. This is by Fiona Cole. This is about Alexandra and Eric. Alexandra is an 18-year-old girl who is very down on her luck. She is living with her sister in a rundown trailer. She's looking for a job. She's looking for any way to make money. They are literally starving to death, and so she ends up going down a rabbit hole at the library on the web and finds a way to sell her virginity for money. It is one of those kind of tropes, but Fiona Cole's writing is just so perfect and so well done that I just fell in love with this book. Eric is a rich CEO, and his twin sisters, whenever they were younger, when they were on vacation, they were sold into sex trafficking, and he was able to save one of the sisters, but unfortunately one of them did not make it. And ever since then, he has been on the lookout for other girls. He's trying his hardest to make up for it. He feels like that is his life's penance in a way, because he couldn't save his other sister. And he finds Alexandra's ad and responds to it, and he happens to be the guy that goes to the hotel, and he basically rips her a new one. He is the definition of an asshole hero. He ends up moving her into his place, giving her a job, and helping her to move on with her life, and it is just so swoon-worthy and so good. The next series I'm going to talk about is Pestilence. This is by Laura Thalassa. This is part of the Four Horsemen series. So Pestilence is here to bring disease upon the world. And it's kind of similar to what we're going through now, but a lot worse. So the heroine in this story is tasked, she's a firefighter, and she's tasked with staying behind and trying to kill Pestilence before he kills the entire population. And so she does end up shooting him and killing him, or so she thinks, but of course he is part of the Four Horsemen and therefore is immortal and can't really be killed. So she does some terrible things to him to make sure that he is dead, and whenever he ends up getting up, he decides that he is going to make her pay for what she did to him. And it is their love story, and it is so heartbreaking at first. I cried so much during this book. I literally felt this heroine's pain. I felt what he did to her, and I was disgusted, but at the same time truly intrigued by everything that happened in this book. I highly recommend. The next book on my list is Hate Notes. This is about Reed and Charlotte. So Charlotte is going and selling her wedding gown. She was engaged and some things happen, and so she goes off and tries to sell the gown, and she isn't able to get just money from it, but she is able to get store credit. So she goes in and she's looking for a dress, and she finds this gorgeous dress, and in this dress there is a note sewn to it, and it is a beautiful note. And so she ends up finding out who wrote this note and finding out that he's single. He actually never went through with marrying the person that the note was written to. And she's curious about him, and one night she happens to be drunk, and so she finds out that he is a realtor, but not just any realtor. He's a realtor to the rich and famous. She ends up requesting to see a property for something that she absolutely knew she could not take, and she ends up going because she's really curious about him, and he turns out to be a huge asshole. And this book is so good. I highly recommend it. And the last book on my list is going to be Burnout. This is by Coralie June. It was one of my very favorite books of last year. This is a student-teacher romance. It is also a brother's best friend romance. It has unrequited love in it. It is just everything that I would want in a book is in this book, and I just really, really loved it. So our hero is absolutely an asshole to our heroine whenever he first meets her. He is, like I mentioned, the brother's best friend, and whenever they are first meeting, he basically interrogates her. He thinks that she's trying to use her brother for his money. She just meets her brother for the first time since her mom has passed away. She didn't even know she had a brother before then, and her brother is kind of very sweet and would do anything for family, and he's really wanting to get to know his family, so he moves her in. And this book is just so really, really, really good. I ended up falling in love with the hero. I understood where he was coming from and why he was doing what he was doing. But he is definitely an asshole at the beginning of this book, and I just highly recommend it. Alright, that's it for me. Those are the 10 books that I would recommend for asshole heroes. Let me know in the comments what some of your favorite asshole heroes are. I will talk to you guys very soon.